All of these recipes this week are from this cookbook. Also, he has a blog which most of the recipes are on. The first dinner we had was Rigatoni Bolognese, and this is the recipe for that. The link for this recipe is in the description. This was very good, but not one of the best. Here I am with all of my, if you know me, I'm a pretty strict rating. My scale is pretty strict as far as rating goes. This could be a 10 to somebody, but I'm looking for like outstanding, blow your socks off recipes. All right, these are all the ingredients that we're gonna need. And this was very, very good, mind you, the recipe. But the others that I tried this week were even better, so there's that. The meat that I'm using is ground beef, even though in the recipe it says to use, I think, 3 different kinds of meat, but I'm just using what I had because that meat was gonna expire that day. And I've got all my stuff together. We're gonna make a mirepoix out of the carrot, celery, and onion. We're just gonna chop all that up and get it going. I love including the sounds of me chopping up the produce or the sizzling of the pan, but if ever I'm doing a voiceover over myself cooking, it's because there's a toddler screaming, having a meltdown, having a tantrum in the background, and it is just not that appealing. So that is why sometimes I do voiceovers and sometimes I use real life sounds, but believe it or not, with 3 toddlers, there's almost always someone screaming and crying. So into the Instant Pot, I threw in the oil, I threw in the garlic and the onion and the meat. We're just gonna brown everything up. We've got that Instant Pot set on saute, and I'm using my wonderful meat chopper, my favorite kitchen tool for meat. Dumping in the wine. There's white wine and red wine in this recipe. My son, I loved watching how meticulously he poured this red wine. He wanted to drizzle it over here and drizzle it over there. He's just so very careful. So I really enjoyed watching him pour that out. In went the can of tomatoes, and here's what it looks like all sizzling up. Got some broth going on in there and all the seasonings. As I said once before, the recipe is linked in the description below. And this was a really good pasta. Better than, you know, an average pasta, but definitely not the most outstanding pasta I've ever had. He asks you to pour the pasta on top and not mix it in, just pat it down. He does this so far. I've cooked several of his recipes. This is a technique he uses for most of them. So we're going to move it off of saute and put it in the pressure cooker for 6 minutes. 4-hour side is one of my favorite things. My son is sprinkling some salt and some olive oil. I've got some pepper going on top of some broccoli, and I've chopped up some garlic, sprinkling that on top as well. And I'm going to squeeze some lemon, and then I just throw it into the oven until it's to my liking. I like it, the little tips of the broccoli nice and brown. That's how I like that. All right, the pressure cooking is done. It's off heat. I've poured in the Boursin cheese and the heavy cream, and we're mixing it all up. It's a very heavy meal. Top it with some shredded Parmesan, and there you have that. My husband really liked this. I kept some in the freezer so that he could take some to work for lunches, and that was dinner that night. This is a bonus video, and these are the types of things that I cook on my Instagram, Plasma Speedos. I will link the recipe for this in the description. You have to pay for a subscription to their website to get the recipe, or you can do like I did and watch. Well, I mean, I do have that by mistake. It's a long story, but you can just watch the video they posted and then write down they go through everything. They basically just say out loud the recipe, and you have to just write it down. Anyway, that's what I did to do this before I accidentally bought the subscription to the website. So this is America's Test Kitchen. These are lemon bars. These are not your candy sweet lemon bars. These are very tart and puckery and lemony. You may not like them if that's not your kind of thing, but I wanted to show you this because this is kind of what I do on Instagram. I typically keep my what's for dinner videos on Instagram, and then all the other times I'm cooking something, I keep my what's for dinner videos on YouTube, and all the other times I'm cooking, I'm on my Instagram. So here I am just making the filling for the lemon bar. I'm cooking it on the stovetop gently because it'll curdle in the oven if you don't give it a jump start according to their video. So that's what I did here, and I'm making sure with my thermometer that I'm keeping it about 160 is the goal I'm aiming for. Take it off heat, add the butter to cool it down. At this point, it's kind of like a curd, not technically, but sort of. And look how beautiful that filling is. Gorgeous. Then we strain it just in case I did curdle anything, and then the lemon zest also gets left behind. And then it's just this beautiful, smooth filling that gets poured into our onto our pre-baked crust. I pop that right back into the oven, and then cook it until it barely jiggles. Let it cool down completely, because if you try to cut this while it's warm, it's just not gonna go well. So I let it sit on the windowsill. It was a nice cool day, and I cut them with my pastry cutter, my pastry knife here, and sprinkled it with some powdered sugar. These were delicious if you like lemon bars that aren't overly sweet. But I just wanted to show you that because I'm particularly doing stuff like that over on the old Instagram. All right, back to the pressure luck cooking French onion chicken. This recipe was highly rated. My husband really liked it. I loved it. It's very comforting, these kinds of dishes. And in playing with my Instant Pot more than I ever have before, I've noticed that even hard to keep juicy pieces like chicken breast are quite juicy in the Instant Pot. So I'm just gonna take my sliced onions and my breading. This has got some seasonings in it and some flour, some butter. I need this Lipton onion soup packet, some Swiss cheese. There's my chicken. This needed a little more salt in the end. I will say that. So I'm pouring in my olive oil and my butter, and I'm getting my chicken ready to brown. He has you add the salt and seasonings right into the flour, but something I prefer to do, which I should have just done, is to salt the chicken first and then bread it. I just feel like that helps the salt to actually be on the chicken. I've got some garlic bread I pre-cooked per package directions, some leftover au jus sauce instead of the onion soup they called for, just because it was in my fridge and I didn't want it to go to waste. And I put the chicken back in there with all of those ingredients. This is also linked in the description. To serve it for the side, I have quite literally just baby spinach and croutons and some dressing. I was not about to do sides. This was a pretty rough night, which is hence the voiceover. Toddler life. So what you do is you put the chicken, after you've pressure cooked it, right back onto the bread, and then you add, that's a cornstarch slurry. You add the onion Lipton soup packet, and you mix it all up, and then when it's nice and thick into a gravy, you pour some of that gravy right on top of the chicken and bread, and then you'll take a slice of Swiss cheese, lay that on top of that, and then add more gravy to the top of that. And then you broil it. I'm not supposed to broil in this dish. Typically you shouldn't broil in ceramic, but I did that. And topped with some crispy onions. Shout out to Paisley. She loves her some crispy onions, and I topped it just like that, along with that side salad. And my husband really loved this dish. This is another shot of something I did on Instagram. I saw a box of Triscuit with that on there, and I wanted to make it. And then some hummus I made one day. Back to what's for dinner. Beef stroganoff. This was really good too. In a rating of them from best to not best, I would say, I'll actually talk about that at the end of the video, just so that I don't take my time doing that here. So I've got chopped up mushroom, onion, garlic, Dijon mustard, seasoning salt, all the ingredients that I need. This is also linked in the description. He uses Boursin cheese a lot, which I know why now, because it is quite delicious in these recipes. And we're just gonna start cooking our beef stroganoff. We had this over rice because my husband and I don't really like egg noodles. And then I've got some thyme there. Drizzling some olive oil into the pot, adding some butter, and then adding the stewed beef. Browning some bacon for the side dish, which are some green beans I learned about from this lady on YouTube. I will link her video in the description. I'm going to take the onions and throw them into the Instant Pot, get those browning, and I'm going back to the green beans. It's basically just chicken broth, garlic powder, brown sugar, salt and pepper, and some bacon, and you obliterate it. You cook it until you cook it to death. I'm going to take the mushrooms, throw them in the Instant Pot, throw the garlic in the Instant Pot, add the white wine, let that cook down, add the mustard, the seasoning salt, thyme. This is some bone broth powder, and then the water with it to make it into a broth. We're gonna close up the lid, set the timer, make sure that vent is pushed back, and pressure cook this food until it's done. So you wait until these are cooked down and all the broth is basically gone. You really just obliterate these, and I couldn't get past it. My husband liked them okay enough, but not enough for me to make them again. All right, taking the lid off, I'm adding my cornstarch slurry, thickening that up, adding the Lipton onion soup packet mix, and then stirring it, and then when the bubbling kind of subsides, I add the Boursin cheese, and then I'll be adding the sour cream. I'm running away from my children as I do this voiceover. I can't. I'm never gonna be professional. That's just what it is. This is what dinner looked like. All right, and then the Peppa Pig chicken Oreganata. This was one of my husband's favorite meals of the entire week. And like I said, I think in the description I'll write down which we liked best to least, but they were all very good. throwing the butter in there, throwing the olive oil in there. I got my breading ready. I salted and seasoned my chicken like I usually would instead of salting the flour because I think that just imparts more flavor. I'm getting it ready to brown in the Instant Pot. I got the Instant Pot set to saute. I was supposed to have lemon, but I had lime. Turns out I needed this lime for the other recipe, and I should have just used the vinegar in this one. Anyhow, I had some lemon. I put some more butter in there. I'm starting to brown up all of the vegetables. And then I'm gonna add this is dehydrated minced garlic because I'm trying to go through that instead of buying fresh garlic. And then I have here some wine going in, stirring that up. Got that lime going in. Should have been lemon, but it was really delicious either way. And then the water that goes with the broth, that's the garlic broth, the better than bouillon. I crush up the herbs like that with my hands just because I feel like it opens up the leaves more, imparts more flavor. Browning up the chicken, and then we're going to set that to vent. We're unventing it here, it's already done. Look at that, the wonders of editing. Taking the chicken out and adding the cornstarch slurry, adding the can of artichokes, and then I'm just pouring the rest of that sauce right on top of the chicken. And then I will be sprinkling that with some breadcrumbs, and then I will be grating some freshly grated Parmesan cheese onto the top, and then I'm gonna pop it into the oven under the broiler, I believe. And it came out looking kind of crazy, but it was actually so delicious. This is me losing track of time. I almost burnt my food, and then I overflowed my minute rice. At any rate, I had some more of that broccoli that I love, and that was dinner. Then I had this on my Instagram. It's the best way to have oats. I'm gonna have a highlight over there to how to make those. And I also share things like my kitchen favorites. These are temptation dishes, and I shared that over on Instagram. Then we have arroz con pollo. This turned out being, this and the last one, debatable on which one comes first. Anyhow, this was so delicious. I didn't use chorizo. I used just regular smoked sausage. It comes out pretty saucy in the end, but the longer you let it sit, the better it becomes. We're gonna throw some olive oil in that pot and then chuck in some butter, which is usually, just seems to be his protocol. That's what he does. Sprinkling some saffron, and then I'm gonna cook that up, let that start to make the kitchen smell delicious. Here's more of that minced garlic, and throwing that in there along with the sausage. I thought I showed myself, there's bell pepper and onion in there too, and I don't know how I missed that, but I must have accidentally deleted that footage. So I'm just gonna add all of the seasonings along with all of those vegetables and the white wine and let it cook down for a little while. My son is helping me. We're gonna add some chicken broth, or better than bouillon. I like doing it that way. The water that goes with that to make it into the broth, some tomatoes. Those are petite diced tomatoes, I believe. I'm showing you the can here. Then I'm adding a splash of vinegar because I should have had the lime, but I used the lime when I didn't have lemon. Either way, it turned out being delicious. And then here I am adding the box of yellow rice, and my son using his other hand to help him push the button because it was too difficult for him to push. And we're setting that to vent. There's the pin drop, that means it's done. And here I just sprinkled it with some fresh cilantro, and that was dinner that night. I do think this was my husband's absolute favorite. He made over this. That concludes 5 Instant Pot recipes, all from this guy's cookbook, and they're all linked in the description on his blog also. And so far, I'm loving everything that he's created. So good. Highly recommend. Have a great day. See you in the next one. Bye.